and welcome to Curtain Call, our brand new podcast all about theater. I'm your host, Robert L. Douglas, and today we're going to talk about one of Detroit's native sons. We can't talk about theater without talking about Ron Milner, outstanding, renowned playwright from Detroit, from Black Bottom, whose plays were on Broadway and who has made a name for himself and the city of Detroit in theater. And we're fortunate today to have with us his son, Raymark Milner, who is a producer and director himself and an outstanding actor, and my partner in theater, Mike White, the inimitable Mike White. So we're just going to have a good time today talking about Ron Milner, talking about theater, talking about Mike White.
You need a couple hours.
right, we're going to need some time to talk about Mike White. But first, let me just, for those of you who are watching who don't know who Ron Milner is, he was a playwright. He was born right here in Detroit, 1938. And as he grew up, he spent a lot of time in the libraries reading. And he would read stories like Huckleberry Finn and Mark Twain, and realize that in those stories, he would hear things that he would see and hear going on in his neighborhood. And if they can write about those kind of things, so could he. And he ended up writing a number of plays that depict black life, urban black life, ghetto-themed stories that deal with all aspects of black life, just like I do, slice of life plays, and made a name for himself. He was also known as the people's playwright because of those plays that he wrote. And during that time in the 60s when he came up, late 50s and 60s, there was a black arts movement going on where artists were creating toward the movements, the civil rights movement and the quest for freedom for black people in America. And some of those artists out of that period were playwrights like Ed Bullings and, of course, Lorraine Hansberry, Amira Baraka, specifically out of that black arts movement. Poets like Nikki Giovanni and Maya Angelou. With Ron Milner, his first play, I believe, was Who's Got His Own, was the first African-American play produced by Joseph Papp at the New York Shakespeare Festival at Lincoln Center. One of his plays, Checkmates, which was, I think he wrote in 1987, premiered on Broadway in 1988 and had a good run there. And it starred Paul Winfield, Ruby Dee, Denzel Washington, and Marsha Jackson. Mm-hmm. And I had the good fortune of producing Checkmates in 2003. I saw that on Wikipedia. I didn't believe that something I did would have been on Wikipedia related to Ron Milner. But he directed it. It may have been the last thing that he did, actually. In Checkmates, we did it for the Repertory Theater of Hope. And one of his stars was Mike White. We met, right, Mike?
That was it.
And he's been by my side ever since. But it was a pleasure to getting to know and to work with Ron Milner. I learned a lot from him as a young playwright. And well, I wasn't so young. I was a playwright, and I learned a lot from him, especially in terms of directing. So there's no way that I can have a show like this, a podcast all about theater, and not talk about Ron Milner. He introduced me to some great people in technical theater and set design and construction, and just was a mentor to me in his last years. So I'm truly honored to have his son Raymark here, as well as my partner Mike White. So with that, I'm going to open up to with the questioning with Raymark. Tell us about your father, your experiences, and the stories that I know you have plenty of that will give us some insight into who your father was and what he meant to theater and to you.
That's a big question because he was a lot of things for me. But I guess the kind of what you're when I think about in terms of like what you were just saying in terms of his start with he was doing a lot of the reading and things in the library, spent a lot of time in books, but I think key for him was he would read and see all of these heroes that Superman or all of these mainstream heroes, and he was like, well, I've got heroes in my neighborhood that their stories aren't told. He was like the guy that goes to the factory every day who does this, that, and the other. He's a hero to me. And he saw the hero in just everyday people. And very early he decided that's who he wanted to write about. In high school, he wrote for the school newspaper, and his buddies, he kind of saw them as heroes. They were, they weren't the name athletes, but in terms of what he saw them do on a baseball field, football field, he wrote about it in a way that gave them that same kind of, feel that we give to the professional athletes that we see out here today. That's the way he wrote about them. So I think key for him was creating these heroes that he wanted to put on stage. And he always said that what he did was hold up a mirror for people. Everybody needs an opportunity to take a look at themselves. And he just wanted to hold that mirror up so that his community would have that mirror to look at themselves and make their own judgments, their own assessments. But he wanted to be authentic and a real image of who we were as people.
Right. And every time I listen to him, it's like I call them portraits. We was talking about it earlier. It's like music to me. Certain pieces, they take me back to a certain time. And as he was describing that, all I could think of was black magic, black art. He talked about the intuitive, frustrating vibration of never seeing in pop culture, seeing anything that was part of me. I forget the words, but was who who I am,
who look like us, sound like us, act like us.
So that's what I. And there's another piece I was talking about this one yesterday. Was it this morning? From the porches. The piece about Aretha Franklin, and just the whole setup of the ball game. Just in and on the radio, the old folks sitting on the porch with their mason cannon jars, and us young ones on the steps, giggling and acting like, we got all these great adventures. But that's exactly how I grew up, right? And I had a little screened-in porch, and our grandparents and uncles, and boy, you ought to be ashamed. So when I read those things, they take me to that place of having joy.
Right. I almost brought porches with me. I always wanted to commit porches to memory.
Okay.
And to perform that. You gave it to me.
Yeah.
And never did get a chance to perform it on whatever we were going to do with it. I forget now. But
it was the same thing we were talking about.
Right. Yeah. And I've always wanted to do portraits. I love that piece. And I still might. Well, you guys put together this program you were telling me about. Then I want to do portraits. It's been a minute since I have actually performed. But I almost wanted to read. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to get.
Oh, you don't have to read. I can read for you right now. I'm not. But, that's why I'm saying these pieces. They are a part of me. My wife. I know I get on her nerves, but it's like over the years, like us discussing, chronicling this work. I don't get ahead of myself, but Ron had said at one point. That he didn't want this all to have been for nothing, right? And you know, let me back up a little bit. I met Ron in 1980.
Okay, so now you're answering my question. When did you meet Ron? How did he get you into theater?
I met Ron in 1980, right? Fred of Bars, Don Albert. Like, man, I'm with this group, man. We doing theater, da da da. You got to come over here with us, right? And I go to a rehearsal. A guy's not there, and they had me reading for the guy. And you know, I'm kind of silly, so I cracked a joke at some point at the end. And Ron laughed and said, "What's this guy bad?" So the play that they were doing is called Crack Stepping. So he took me to his house. There was a part that was off stage. He wrote it in, you know, so I would appear on stage. And, you know, it was after that, every time he did something, you know, I had the opportunity to work, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I knew Ray Mark from high school, but he was running with a younger, I knew who he was. Mm-hmm. And, you know, once we started doing this thing, you know, all of our friends in our school and running around community, you know, a lot of them were in this particular piece, and you know, friendships grew out of that. But anyway, after that, you know, every opportunity that you know, he could give me to work, you know, I worked, and you know, we became friends, and mm-hmm. been all over the country, man, doing stuff, making money. In fact, Ray Mark is the reason that I'm a caterer right now, you know, because we were on tour with a play, One Monkey Don't Stop No Show, and I'm cooking, you know, everywhere I go, I'm a cook. And I'm cooking for the rest of the cast, one thing lead to another. He said, we don't need a caterer, you know, let Mike do the cooking. You know, understudy in the lead role. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I learned to cook for large groups. And then we came from that tour, I did his aunt's wedding. And then after that, that became that. But in terms of you know, the work, before I knew Ron was sick, you know, we were talking about, we're in the process, not just talking, we were producing, he wanted to produce a series of plays, his work and other artists like yourself, you know. We had you in there and produce a series of plays, and we were going to call it Portraits, right? Mm-hmm. And the first one was going to be Checkmates. Ella Joyce was, you know, she was in town. We had Gerald's place, we making commercials. And Ron Kevin, we had a little argument, right? And then he told me, it's like, well, I'm sick, Mike, you know, it's like, and I, you know, it's like, okay. I didn't know, and I didn't know how, I didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. But, you know, before we could finish doing what we were doing, you know, it's like things happened the way that they did, you know, and I called Ray Mark, it's like, you gotta get here, something's not right. But anyway, not long after Ray Mark came here, you know, he passed, and what was it, next day?
Yeah.
And so now my thing was, okay, I lost my friend, I just lost my father, mm-hmm. and it's like, now what happens with all of these plans that we had? I talked to Ray Mark about it. She said, well, you know, I think the words was, you know, I trust you, I know where this is coming from, and he allowed me to produce the portraits.
Portraits of Milner.
Right, what do you call it, the honor, what do you call that? My mind is going blank. You know, just to honor him, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. We put these pieces, I call them portraits, you know, together. And,
I remember that.
You know, we didn't have a lot of money. In fact, we made tickets on our little desktop computer. We started selling the tickets to get money to make flyers and so forth and so on. Mm-hmm. But then a lot of people that participated, and I discovered John Jones, Morgan, Breon, she was 15 at the time. Do you see what she's doing now?
Right.
I met her through you.
Right. I'm going to get her on as soon as she gets back from New York.
So, you know, those was the kind of people participating. And for me, I thought we did a great job in representing the things that he and I had been trying to do. And it always felt like all we need is some money. This is money.
Right.
And, you know, it's like, this work, everybody relates to this stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling, but that's...
Okay, right now it's time for a station ID. You're watching Curtain Call live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, X, and other social media platforms. We'd like for you to like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Now, back to Ron Milner. I remember Portraits of Milner, and it was there were so many pieces that you could just put together from all his different plays that could tell a story unto itself,
Right.
That could give you a stream of information, entertainment, and just move you in so many ways, because the things he wrote about was so human in nature. The things that we go through, we feel, that gave us portraits of ourselves,
Yeah.
the black community. Before we knew August Wilson and Fences and Piano Lesson and all those plays, we had Ron Milner with you know.
Right. August Wilson. Remember you was talking about August Wilson?
Yeah, he was. I think one of my favorite quotes about my father came from August Wilson.
Okay.
And that he had said that Ron Milner and the city of Detroit are to black theater what Louis Armstrong and the city of New Orleans is to jazz. And that was like a huge, you know.
Okay, I got to write that down. That's the first time I heard that, and that's true. That's so true. You know, when I look at your dad and I think about the August Wilson plays, yeah, you know, that was Ron Milner. And then we find out there's a August Wilson, and of course we know what his works are doing. But yeah, before there was August Wilson, that was Ron Milner.
They were kind of contemporaries.
Contemporary, yeah.
Yeah, they were kind of contemporaries. Yeah. But the and even the impact today, I think that they were kind of an influence on each other,
right?
In a way. But I think even when I look at, you know, like I've been away from Detroit like over 30 years. You know, I come back for short spurts of time, but I had some personal things going on, and so I've been here for a few months now. And I can see now the impact of his work today. I mean, I go, you know, I try to see as many, first of all, the activity in the theater here is like nowhere else. You know, I travel quite a bit, and it's almost every weekend. There's not, you have to on purpose not go see a play. Somebody is doing something, and the most of the quality is there,
right?
You know, and then I was surprised that, you know, it's been 20 years. It's a whole new generation. And the people who picked up the mantle, like yourself and this, and they are definitely providing that guidance to that next generation. But when I go see these plays and people find out that, you know, name is Milner, that is not forgotten.
No.
Right.
Everybody comes out and says, hey, I knew Ron this, or he influenced me that way. I mean, my brother was in town. They did a deal for out at Shane Park. They rededicated the stage, and they actually got the official plaque. So they did a small ceremony for that. And my brother came in town, and his wife, she's a movie director, right? And she was telling me that when she was telling Diara Kilpatrick,
Well, I hope if you got a number for her, I want to get her in here.
But she was telling Diara that she was coming here, and Diara was telling her the influence that Dad had on her. That he was the first person to ever write her a check for writing, and let her know that it was a viable way to make a living. You know, at a very young age. She said she was like in elementary or junior high or something, and they had the parents in to come, and he happened to be in the audience, and she had written a little piece, and he was like, "Let me write you a check." That was, you know,
Wow.
and
That's a rich story right there.
And about a week before that, he was telling me, but when anybody cared, when anybody even... And then that happened. Right.
But I mean, it's just a lot of things I look at, and not just, you know, writers and actors. It's like people like in set design and stuff like that. But my first real opportunity was, you know, he came and allowed me to do this, that, and the other, and I went and studied and figured out how to make this a you know, an actual life, you know.
Right.
And that was another thing for Dad. He always talked about how it amazed him how he could have an idea, put it on paper, and then hundreds of people go to work. You know, there's lighting technicians, there's costume designers, there's a director, there's actors, there's makeup artists. All these people go to work based off of an idea and just pencil and paper.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, he introduced me to old Keith Jackson, who's probably the best set designer I've ever met.
Who?
Keith Jackson. And man, Keith built every set I did for a good 20 years.
And Keith is national now.
Right, yeah,
you know
Keith
what
is
I mean?
national.
He's working, you know, and the people that he's trained are in Hollywood, in New York, you know.
I saw him in DeLorean on a podcast, and that was Mason. And, you know, Mason was running it down and say Keith is modest, and, you know, but he's like trained these people, that. He's done all of these things for other people. He was busy giving Ron all the credit for getting him where he was. But just like you said, now, you know, that he fertilized that seed. And, you know, Jackson fertilized all these other seeds, and they're out there doing big things. And he don't even think about it. And he was like, you could tell that he sincere. That was the first time he's like, I never looked at it like that. But, you know, a great guy, great talented guy, man. And he owed me $200.
Keith was the man. The sets he designed and built for me were just the best. We went into the first time we went into the music hall with Family Love. Lord, you know so well. That set was just fabulous. It was expensive. It was expensive, but it was
money.
Right.
I got away one time when I did Family Love at Northwoods Activity Center. Yeah, that's what my dad passed.
He did that set too.
Right. But wait, I got away with it, you know, because we didn't make no money. I had to go see Vito, but he all I had to do was pay some bill he owed. It was like, I love it. I'm in love with him ever since. But you know, the thing that we were talking about early, Portraits of Milner, you know, documenting the work on film while you know, sharing information and experiences and photographs and interviews, you know, and you know, that would thread all these pieces, you know, together, kind of like a tour through the Ron Milner Museum. But anyway, we had talked to Jackson about, we brainstorming. So hopefully, you know, at some point we can solidify the vision and get it down, and then just grow it from there and see what happens, man. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Ron brought you on, and when we did Checkmates, that's when I met you. Doing the part of Seal, Sylvester, which was outstanding. And Mike White has been by my side ever since. I had a play called Family Love. We did it at the Music Hall in 1997. Again, I'm telling my age. And up until that point, I was the only person who ever played Grandpa Bacon in this play. And it was my role, okay? The producer...
It was.
It was. The producers, the promoters who promoted us in the music hall brought in Roger E. Mosley, who played TC on Magnum P.I. He did an outstanding job as Grandpa Baker. And then I discovered Mike White. And Mike White is my Grandpa Baker. He has defined Grandpa Baker. And there are young actors throughout this city who still refer to him as Grandpa Baker. And
I love all them kids. I'm proud of them too, man.
Yeah,
I knew when we was doing what we were doing. It's like this kid, DeLorean, George, the girls, come on, man,
Toya, Alicia.
Yeah, Alicia, man, them kids was incredible.
All right.
Karen,
who's on
First Lady.
Who's on what is that show? The Oval Office. Yeah, all of those people have been through Family Love.
Yeah. And I enjoyed that character, man, and I enjoyed him because anybody saw it. Some people say you should just being yourself, but I took the words, and they reminded me so much again, like real stuff. My grandfather, my Uncle Ezel, my daddy. Everybody know my daddy was crazy. So yeah, that was a joy, and I wasn't working. I was having a good time. Other folks, my wives, they never knew what I was gonna say, so they had to keep up.
Good time. For those who know, Mike is one of the finest actors in the city of Detroit.
Okay, yeah, I get off a good one every now and then. But you know,
and also an outstanding chef.
Oh yeah, well we forgot about that, and I do it solely for you.
Right, and that is the name of his catering company, solely for you. That was a shameless plug, y'all.
There you go.
I didn't catch it.
I have no shame.
You give him a call after the show. You looking for a good caterer.
Solely for
Call
you.
him. Right.
Solelyforyou.com. Yeah, but listen though, and I forget about this even when we talking. It's like, hey, Mark directed this play that we did, Stoops. Who wrote that?
Keep going.
Roosevelt. We forgot about Roosevelt.
Right,
Roosevelt. Kelly Evans, Robin Williams, myself, a girl, Charlie. I forget Charlie's last name, but I think about it was Erica Hill, yeah, and because we spent so much time in the theater, it really didn't feel like work. But I was really proud of that piece, man. You did a good job.
Yeah, I was proud of that too.
Yeah, tell us more about your experiences in theater and your work and the things you've done over the years.
You know, I've pretty much been behind the scenes in production. Mm-hmm. I came in acting. I was probably...
Isn't that how we all started?
Yeah, I was probably 10 or 11 back in the Concept East days.
Mm-hmm. Concept East, right.
Yeah. I did a show, I think the first play I did was written by Bill Harris.
Okay.
So that was kind of my introduction.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I've done everything pretty much that you can do in a theater, including actually building the stage, installing the chairs, the whole concession, selling tickets, you name it.
You done
in the theater.
Company manager.
I've done it. Yeah, and I managed some tours, and so done a little bit of everything. I can't think of anything in the theater. Now I don't. I even spent time with Jackson learning design and how to build and the correct the correct way to put in the lights and to light a scene and this, that, and the other. So there's not much.
Forget about lighting. Lighting is so important. Lighting and sound, and Keith does it all.
Yeah.
And some of the things now that they do with what you're able to do with technology on a stage now is just it's light years from where we
started, right? From where I started in college. It's time for another Station ID. You are watching Curtain Call live streaming on Facebook Live, YouTube, X, and all other social media platforms. Please take a moment to like us or follow us, subscribe or share, or even comment to your friends. And because we need viewers, we want you to watch. Spread the word. We're trying to grow and enhance cultural awareness in the city of Detroit and throughout the country, especially about theater, all theater, and in particular, black theater. With that being said, give us some more information about Ron Milner.
He liked my cabbage.
I
It's funny. Whenever I make cabbage, I made it old school style. If he's steak and I put that vinegar in there, little pepper juice and da-da-da. And when I started cooking for the cast, I'm trying to like water it down, right? And because everybody, I'm trying to make it middle of the road. When I was eating that cabbage, he was like, Mike, what is this? Why you need to make it the other way, man? So he wanted that steak and cabbage.
I know when working with Ron, I learned so much as a director from him as well. I was always the type of director who focused and concentrated on the basic fundamentals, the academics of how you act and moving around on stage. I put a lot of emphasis on that. And watching Ron, who was so laid back at the time when he directed you guys in Checkmates, it was just like, okay, what's happening here? And I'm watching and I'm studying and and I'm like, okay, I would probably be doing this and I'd be doing that. But over a period of time, I'm saying, okay, and I'm watching you guys develop your character and your timing. Timing is something that it's got to be perfect in theater. And I'm like, okay, he needs to work on this, he needs to work on that. But watching him work helped me grow as a director because I saw the way he was able to let you guys organically grow into the characters and create the personas and to create the scenes and develop those scenes, and then he just kind of pulled them all together there at the end, where I was like, okay, how's this gonna work out? How's this going? Oh, and then it was beautiful. Yeah. And I'm saying I'm learning something here on the job as a producer. I'm learning how this man can direct as well as he can write.
Yeah,
and another thing for people that aren't really familiar with his work, the younger folks who may not know who he is that he had a real commitment to the city of Detroit.
Absolutely.
No matter where he went. As a matter of fact, people from other places sometime after they said Ron Milner, they would just call him Detroit. Mm-hmm. He is Detroit because wherever he went, he kind of carried that with him and let people know. And I think it came out in the work too. It was like everything took place in Detroit, and he kind of used Detroit as kind of the microcosm for the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he had plenty of opportunity to go New York, California, and he spent brief periods there. Mm-hmm. But he always considered Detroit home, always came back, and most of his work was actually created and done here before it went to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. I was reading about how he and Woody King connected, and both of them went to New York, and Woody became a producer and director, and they started a theater company there. Can you give us some insight into that relationship and that experience? Because Woody King is another one of those names that is a institution in black theater that if you don't know about, you need to do some research on. Woody King Jr. Him and Ron Milner both left here and went to New York and did big things. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, initially, Dad wanted to be a novelist. He wanted to do the Richard Wright and that whole thing. And he went to see A Raisin in the Sun, Lorraine Hansberry. and that's where we met Woody. Woody
Okay.
was there too in that intermission.
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure how they got introduced or started up a conversation.
Mhm.
But Woody found out that well, first of all, they were both blown away by the play.
I've done it a few times.
And what that meant, And they got in that conversation, and Dad was talking about the novel he was working on. And Woody said, well, have you ever thought about doing plays? And Dad hadn't really given that any serious contemplation. He wanted to be, a novelist. And so out of conversation, Woody talked him into doing a couple things, which eventually became Who's Got His Own. But I think what happened, well, not I think, what he told me, what happened was when he got to see his characters walking around and actually speaking and not just on the page, and when he was able to get the response and the engagement from an audience in real time, as opposed to somebody reading a book, writing him a letter, or picking up the phone and say, I read your book and here's how. He was like, with a play, he got it right away. It was either working or it wasn't working, and he was hooked from there. And then him and Woody went from doing plays in storefronts and church basements and things like that into building Concept East. And eventually, Woody went off to New York. Dad was there shortly after. And Who's Got His Own. And they've been a partnership throughout his career. I think, and that was one of the other things about Dad, was he wanted his stuff done. He didn't want to write a play and have it sit somewhere.
Right.
So he was like, as a playwright, it's important that I develop a relationship with a producer too.
Absolutely.
And so they were kind of partners in that way, him and Woody. And there was only like 2 producers that he did, like the majority of his work with, and Woody was the main one.
The main one, right. Right.
It was
Barry Hankerson.
Oh, Barry Hankerson, okay.
Yeah.
It just, you touched on a nerve there. As a playwright, my greatest joy is after I've finished directing a play, and Mike White and all the others, and turn them over to the stage manager to run the show from opening night on, I go in the back, sit at the light board, and watch the reaction of the audience to what I've written.
Right.
And I can tell you from experience, that is pure joy.
Now, for me, it's like when I'm listening to y'all, right, I'm thinking about at some point I read Ron said for him it all started with the music, right? And I was talking to somebody about this, but for me, it's like it's a rhythm thing and it's a timing thing, right? And being able to it's like for me, it's like, okay, you produced the music, you wrote the music, he produced it, and now I'm singing it, right? And it's like I don't want to sing it like they sung it. You know what I'm saying? I want to try this, and that used to give me either it would be like, oh, that was great, Mike White, keep that, or it'd be like, I'm trying different stuff, like a singer might try to run or something, and either I'm gonna get praised or I'm gonna get cussed out. But that was the process. I love working with Ron. I mean, it was like he would get ready to say something, and I already knew, right? And so it was cool, man. It wasn't nothing like it. And other than working with you, it's sometimes it can be frustrating with working with a director that's hands off. I'd rather I need help. I ain't that great.
Well, that's what directors are supposed to do. Looking at Ron and looking at his career, his legacy, the playwrights who come after, the playwrights who are coming up now. doing my reading and doing my research, and seeing how he was a part of the Black Arts movement of the 50s and 60s, I gained an understanding that the Black Arts movement was basically an extension of the Harlem Renaissance in its time. So that was the Harlem Renaissance that gave us Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston and Connie Cullum and black writers like that. And then you look, and there's a whole new generation, 20, 30, 40 years later, the Black Arts movement. And now, 20 years after that, 20, 30 years after that, you got guys like me who come along, and then there are guys like Tyler Perry and David Talbot and those guys who took theater to a different place with the urban theater. And I don't know if we've got a name for that period of that movement yet, but that was that took theater to a different place and a different level. You guys care to discuss what you think and see about it?
I just think that, it goes back to the importance of, mentorship, and that people take what they learn and they pass it on. And not only pass what they learn on, but say the names of the people that mentored them. Just like, for my father, Langston Hughes was his mentor.
Right.
And he was an assistant. He was Langston Hughes' assistant for a while.
Right.
So, that mentorship is very important, and we don't get to, the people that you mentioned that are working today if we don't have that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's all been such a journey, and I'm looking now. You mentioned Morgan, who had it at church.
That's what I'm first. Yeah,
at church, and now she's in New York rehearsing for a one-woman show. I've seen her one woman show that she did, and it's
well, she wouldn't be there except for you guys put her up there and let her know that she could do it.
Right now.
Gave her that
she let us know she could do it.
Right.
She is amazing. She's educated. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
And man, it's like, oh my God.
She's like a fountain that just
and what's her name again?
Morgan Breon.
Breon.
But I think she's some kind of educator. But her thing is, mental health with young people, with kids, right? And kind of like, one of the things we were talking about earlier, one of the things, part of Portraits of Milner was edutainment. You guys probably, this was something that was new to me, but the edutainment part of the Ron Milner Theater was, recruiting kids for a summer program, having them write their experiences and whatever, express their experiences. And, we put together over these 14, 16 weeks, we produce a show based off what they've created from their lives, right? And it ends with, a production of, of that. They sing, dance, whatever. But in fact, when I worked at Lafayette Clinic, I didn't know that I was doing this at the time, but these kids, they were emotionally impaired. But I kind of did the same thing. They was like, Mr. White, that guy can't do this. I took the kids where they were, right? And I made this kid, he was an MC, he was a magician. And one kid, I'll never forget it, I forget his name, but I had him playing his little wooden guitar, 7779311. But the point being is, those kids, they got a, that changed them. And the same thing, I would see them later in life, Mr. White, Mr. White. So, that part of, you said something earlier, it's like me and Chris were talking about, my wife is a dancer, Dunham dancer. It's our responsibility, whatever little bit, we might not think much obligated to share, at least pass one thing on. My wife is a brilliant dancer, right? And to me, it's like, honey, you need to share that with the next, generation that's coming along, and anyway. Yeah,
Catherine Dunham dancer. If you don't know who Catherine Dunham is,
Yeah.
you need to research her as well.
Definitely.
So
And if
she-
you don't know who Crystal White is, don't worry about it.
don't worry.
I got her locked now.
You are watching Curtain Call, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X, and all other streaming social media streaming platforms. And please, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share, give us a comment. Let people know that you're watching us.
Yeah, I'll make y'all some lasagna and some bacon.
Y'all know his peach cobbler is #1.
And you can ask anybody.
Number one.
We created something this morning. We gonna call it, what was that? Peach cobbler, French toast. I'm stealing that from that fellow over there on Wolf. I'm just joking. But yeah, liking all of that stuff, man. I don't know nothing about that. Do that.
As we've been talking and sharing, we've touched on some points. Clearly, we see the influences that Ron had on him, Langston Hughes, the community, the library, stories that are standard American stories like Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn, and then we've talked about the influences he's had on people like me and so many others, and how there's a connection and that continues. Raymark, comments, both of you, comments about his legacy, from the heart type stuff.
I want to say this, and I'm gonna be quiet. As far as theater, but Ron was my friend, right? We used to argue a lot about the work, and he would always check with me, "We good, right?" But Ron taught me a lot of stuff, about being a good person. And over the years, like he would see me acting out, and pull me to the side. Hey man, certain way to do a thing, and that's not it.
Right.
So yeah, I always appreciated him, cause some of your friends, they'll just go along with your nonsense, right? But it's 2 or 3 of us that tell each other the truth right now. You can't call yourself no friend without being able to talk to somebody where they need to be talked to, and for me to accept it because I know it's right. So I just want to say that part that, Ron really helped me, just like with my marriage. He don't even, it was like this, okay, real quick. When I first met my wife, her car, she had a flat in front of it. We was doing the rhythm and the blues. She was my leading lady. I'm trying to get next to her. She had a flat. And Ron and Barry, they stand in front of the theater. I'm getting ready to change the flat. They talking about, man, don't you get somebody else to do that, man. You don't do that. I'm like, shit. The rest, as they say, is history. Okay, I'm done.
With Ron, before he passed, sometime after we'd done Checkmates, I sat down, we were having a conversation, and I was telling him about a play I'd written, and I was writing a play, and I was kind of stuck, locked in, just writer's block. I called it Joy Road, which is about a play about the week prior to the Detroit riots, about a neighborhood, a brownstone neighborhood, and the people who live in that brownstone, and what goes on in their life the week prior to the riots, right up to the night the riots started. And I was just stuck, and I just talked to Ron, and he gave me some pointers, and okay. I was still stuck, and then when I think you told me that he had passed, and I sat down and I went through that whole thing with that, and he inspired me in that moment to finish that play. So Joy Road is a completed musical play, waiting on a producer.
Some money.
Waiting on some money, right. So you have been watching Curtain Call, and it's been my pleasure, a real joy today to sit here with Raymark Milner and Ron Milner protege and Mike White to discuss theater and his career and his life and his legacy. I'm hoping you enjoyed what we did today and the discussions that we've had today. And I want you to look forward to our shows coming up in the future. Again, I'm going to reach out to Morgan Breon, try to get her on, and some of these other young up-and-coming actors and writers and producers and choreographers and set designers. Because when we talk about theater, we're going to explore the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So with that, it's been a good show today. I've enjoyed you. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Where's the check? Go to check.
Well, see me after we're off the air, and I'll tell you all about that.
Tell you all about it.
Okay.
No worries.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Curtain Call.